Shalom my friends, and welcome back to Dwarven Destruction. What I'm going to show you today is I've actually gotten a lot of work done recently, which is actually quite amazing considering my usual process. I even have my trade depot. I've actually started digging out a lot of gems because eventually they will be used to decorate my goods and armor, and it'll give a jeweler something to do. I've dug out a lot of my fort. A lot of the basics are now in place, such as I have a little farm over here that once it's completely dug out, I'll start growing subterranean plants, but that'll be at a later date. And I even have some workshop areas and a stockpile. And over here are migrants. Migrants are the dwarves that come into your fort. They linger around this little area with that gray X going, "Hey, we're here, I don't know what to do, I'll just sit here and do absolutely nothing." So all that can really be done is to wait for that to wear off. It doesn't take too long, so it will wear off eventually. Now, if you remember before, I had 7 dwarves. Now I have 13, so I got 6 dwarves from this current migrant wave, and they came with a couple of pets. Hey, we got a piglet and a reindeer. That's quite nice. Hopefully we'll get some use out of them once they grow up. And we just got a couple random animals that just wandered in. We can ignore them, and no one's dead yet, amazingly. So now, all I have to do is I sit here, wait for them to remove migrant status, and hey, what's that pink? A sow. Awesome, so we got a female pig, which is good. If we get a male pig, soon we'll have little piglets running around, and you know what that means. Once they grow up, bacon. I really want bacon, don't you? Oh, great. Migrant status has worn off, so what we are going to do is we are going to go into their labor tabs, and we are going to give them something to actually do. See, we have this mason, which is a good thing, because remember our previous mason was a little weakling? With this one, we now have another one to actually get stuff done, hopefully at a quicker pace. We have a cheesemaker, which are actually kind of useless. I mean, I like cheese, you like cheese. Who doesn't like cheese except those with high cholesterol? But we're going to give him more cooking orders, so he'll actually have some more stuff to do, like farming, for example. We have a dedicated cook. We'll just throw on some more cooking-related activities, such as butchery and farming. Butchery is, as you can imagine, is just used to slaughter living animals to get their parts, such as meat and bones and skin, to turn into leather. And a blacksmith, not entirely useful just yet. We don't have a furnace and we don't have an anvil, so he can't do anything. So what we are going to do is turn him into a gem person, a gem dwarf. That way he can start cutting all those gems that we have leaving around. And we also have this fishery worker. We already have one fisher, that's enough for now, so we'll leave him with cleaning, but we'll also give him some crafting skills. That way that craft store station I built last episode will actually be built, and he will actually start to create materials for our trade depot. We also have a wood crafter. We'll toss a couple other things on him, and we'll turn him into our cloth dwarf once we actually have, cloth, like pigtail cloth and silk to use. And now that everyone has been set up, their status has worn off, they will rush out to do their thing. That little pig is following his little friend. How nice. And let's see here. We are going to start adding extra stations. You always want at least 2 of every station. For as you'll see in a later date, dwarves can go insane. And when they go insane, they lock up a station, so you always want to have an extra 1 or 2 available. They can't go insane at a still, but we're going to add a couple more anyway, because I find 3 kitchens and 3 stills are enough to keep an entire fortress fed. And let's see, might as well start adding these jobs, such as more tables and chairs. You use tables and chairs to make dining halls. Dining halls are good because that means dwarves won't actually sit on the floor to eat their food. Now, I personally don't know why that would be such a problem, but I guess dwarves have a bit more class than me, because I see no problem on the floor, they do. This is my pond. What I'm doing is I'm going to set this area. I have this area set up to be filled with buckets, because I want this filled up with water, because you want a water source nearby, because it's used by doctors to clean your dwarves, as well as washing and a nearby fresh water source. This equal sign, these dashes, mean I have it set up as a pond. And really all that is to it. You set it up as a pond. What dwarves will do is when they have time, they'll grab a bucket, fill it with water, and dump it in. The report system doesn't actually report what I was looking at, because it only actually reports combat reports and other important things of that nature. Just standard just standard, reports like, hey, I can't do this job, doesn't really have anything to go by. And now what I'm going to do is the masonry has been built. Let's give them a couple jobs so our second mason will actually have something to do. And what I like to do with the craft dwarf is you always want, I say, rock crafts and rock toys on a constant creation basis. That way you will constantly make, well, obviously rock crafts and toys, which are used basically just for trade fodder. And here I'm going to put a finished goods stockpile. So what our dwarves will do is everything that gets completed, like doors, tables, all that stuff we have from the wagon will now get moved over here, so it's close by. And here are barrels. You use barrels to store goods, and more importantly, booze. I don't know about you, but there's no such thing as too much booze, especially when it comes to dwarves. Dwarves like booze. I like booze. Actually, no, I don't, but dwarves like booze. So the more barrels, the more booze can be stored. So that's very useful. And now what I'm going to do is using the UMKH buttons, I'm going to build 4 plots of farm. That's because there are 4 subterranean plants that can be made, and you can only grow 1 per plot per season. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these 4 plots, and as the season goes on, as the seasons change, I will change them up, keep the crops rotating, as it were. And now all those farming dwarves that we set up will rush to do that, while every other dwarf will take these finished goods as top priority, because I don't know why, but dwarves like to use hauling as top priority. I could probably change that, but I'm a bit too lazy to, so we'll just let them do their thing. Let's see. Barrels will eventually get done. I do believe I set more than 1 dwarf as a carpenter. No, I did not, so let's just add the second person as a carpenter. We'll get a bower's shop created, and we'll get more barrels and beds as well. Let's see, might as well add a couple drinks, add some food to be created. The easy meals, what they do is they take a few, very few, food items to turn them into a meal, and now that we have these doors, I can now actually get started on making a dining room. This will be important, as by making a dining room, dwarves will conjugate here, rather than just sit outside in the rain, in the weather, and wait to be picked off by monsters. So by making a dining hall and turn it into a meeting hall, dwarves will run over here once everything gets set up, which might unfortunately take a little while. So, let's see, yep, that's the... Here we go. Alright, unfortunately now it's still, everyone's just going to be rushing around doing their little thing. I got a couple of rabbits, who cares about those? Well, when I have a hunter, I'll care about them, because that's free rabbit meat. And remember when I said I had my depot created? Here you will see my depot, and you're going to see some bright lights. I do apologize about that, but that signifies access. The green W's means there is wagon access. You need a 3x3 area for wagon access to get to your trade depot, and I dug out this entire area, a bit too much in all honesty, but we'll live with it. And let's see, the pond's still very, very slowly being filled. That once we have less to do, that'll probably get filled a bit quicker. And now that my table's here, let's make a dining room by just hitting the R button and using the plus sign to size it. I turn this whole thing to a dining room. Dwarves will now eat here, and by hitting H to turn it into a meeting hall, every dwarf that comes in will now conjugate to this area. And and while you don't really need to have chairs, I like having tables and chairs because it makes sense, in all honesty. And eventually, I believe those animals will head over to the dining hall, or I might need to actually create a pasture, but I don't think I've done so yet. Oh, and you can remember how you could easily check your dwarf status? You can also do the same with animals. Not very important, but now we know what this pig looks like. Not that it really matters. She'll become bacon eventually anyway. And now the rest, the dwarves will just continue to do their thing. And remember how I said, oh look, these dwarves are already eating at my dining room, and that's a good thing. They like sitting down and eating. Eventually my booze and my kitchen will be finished. Or the meals, and the booze will be made, of course, I meant. And everything else is just, we'll let them do their thing. They'll eventually get it done. And remember what I said, or remember earlier how I played this game before? Why didn't I use my previous world? Well, there's a sad, tragic tale to that story, which is, well, mainly the fort that I had previously did something I like to call died horribly and painfully in a fire. And so we can't really use a fort where everyone died getting engulfed in magma, because I found magma, I decided to pipe it, and I didn't actually pipe it correctly, so my fort got filled up with magma, and all my dwarves discovered the joys of being flammable, and they were a bit too busy dying a slow, painful death to actually, get anything done. But anyway, that was then. This is now. I'll hopefully not set this fort on fire, but I'll probably find some other way to kill everyone. But that's all. Thank you very much for watching. Shalom, and until next time.